I love that. Good morning, everybody. What a treat to be here. This is my first visit here to Coyle, so I'm very honored to, at long last, make it. And I'm going to say a few words, but I think it's fair to say I'm going to be much more in listening mode than in speaking mode. I'll give you a little bit of a sense of how we're thinking about things. Make some introductory sort of framing remarks, ask Sean to give his perspective, and then we'll just buzz around and have an open discussion. Probably very simply things like, if you had a magic wand, what do you not have that you'd like to have? What criticisms would you throw our way, or areas to improve? What's working, to maybe put a glass half full element to it. And then we'll just have an open discussion. So this discussion is born in many respects out of I used to be an ambassador, in my case to Germany. And I had a boss who had a phrase, you can't answer something with nothing. And the two somethings that really struck Sean and me, and I'm sure all of you, one is very close to home, the other is on the other side of the country. The close to home one is we had the driest fall, I think, Sean, driest fall season on record. And we paid a price for that with a significant, and you guys have forgotten more about this than I know, with a significant amount of fires, including a bunch that were over 100 acres, which is sort of in the major category. I think, Sean, these are not pre-planned, but the ones that that took place last year, something in the order of 5,000 acres. And at least that was the number I saw. So that you can't just look at that and do nothing about it. I realize, you guys, I'm looking at you. I realize it's Latham and Carmen. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Two great legislators and very good friends in the Senate. And then the second piece was, and by the way, that's getting worse, and we know, whether we like it or not, whether it's okay to say this anymore or not, the fact is climate change is not our friend here. This is hurting us, and it's probably hurting us in the top handful of states in America. We're the most densely populated state. I think we're the top one or two exposed to sea level rise, only with South Florida. And again, the impacts of climate change hit New Jersey, top 3, top 5 states in the nation. And then, of course, Los Angeles and everything that happened there. And that was unlike structures here that were threatened, but for the most part, we dodged bullets. They didn't. And for all the above reasons, Sean and I and our teams thought it made sense. We've been on back and forth with you all in many cases in the thick of an emergency. We thought, when there's no emergency and there's a chance to just sit and compare notes, so let's do that. And that's the spirit that guides us. Again, I want to thank Chief Bill Donnelly and his team for hosting, Tom Gerber, Section Forest and Fire Warden, Sean, obviously, Greg on Sean's team, who is Administrator of Forest and Natural Lands. The mayors, I want to give the mayors a shout out. We got Bill Picolecki, a dear friend, Mayor Rick Adams, Mayor and Vice President of New Jersey Firemen's Association, Joe Hankins, Mayor Michelle Dale, Mayor Billy DeGroff. I thank them. Again, Senators Tiver and Amato. I don't see Mike Teresi. Is he coming or not? No, he's not coming. So give your colleagues in the Assembly a shout out from us. But good to have you guys here. It means a lot, and obviously members of the team. Not a whole lot more framing that I want to say. I've given you the reasons why we're here. We obviously keep, as Sean and I always say, we keep everyone in our thoughts and prayers, but prayers aren't going to get the job done. Sean will give you a little bit of a better understanding. We put some significant amount more money to work fighting forest fires. I'm going to present our budget, I guess, a week after next. It'll be a tough budget. Most American states are living through what we're living through. We deliberately overspent coming out of the pandemic so that we could get back on our feet faster. Good news is it's worked. We get the strongest economy in the Northeast. That's the good news. The challenging news is you can't do that forever. Unlike Washington, which hasn't had a balanced budget since the mid-90s, I've got to sign a balanced budget every year. So when you're taking in less than you're putting out, you could do that for a couple of years, but you can't do it forever. And this is a year where we're going to have to trim our sails. I'm happy to say we're not going to trim our sails in the resources we put together to fight fires. We're going to be at the same, I'm going to propose the same level of money that we have in this year's budget. So, Bill, I got to slip you a 20 later on for applauding. One of the things I'm going to ask Sean to talk about, this is not a money issue, rather a coordination awareness issue. We're going to sharpen up a bunch of the efforts that we already have in place and put under a moniker that we're calling SMART. And that stands for what Sean will go through. Basically, things that we're already doing, but crystallizing, better communicating, sharpening the focus on what we've got already on the books. And we think that's going to make, that's not for more money, but we think we can, with that same amount of money in this year that we have in this year's budget, we can get a lot more bang for our buck in terms of getting out ahead of what we know. And again, we're doing this in February because we know the spring fire season is not far down the line. January, I believe, was a record dry. February, so far, is turning out not to be. Got some more weather coming in this weekend and a big one potentially next week. But I want to ask Sean if he could go through the so-called SMART, S-M-A-R-T, which is an acronym that stands for a bunch of things. Again, I'm incredibly honored to be here. Mad at myself, it took me till year 8 to get to this renowned, iconic location. But better late than never. With that, please help me welcome the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Sean LaTourette. Sean, over to you, buddy.
Now I have to slip everyone a 20. Well, Governor, thank you. You don't got to pay. Thank you for visiting Coyle Field, and most importantly, thank you to the brave men and women of our New Jersey Forest Fire Service. You know, New Jersey is unique in states among the East Coast in that we have a dedicated forest fire service at all. And that forest fire service has seen more investment under this administration than others in history, including increases in staffing, more FTEs, as we call them, to add to our ranks, in addition to funding for supporting equipment and contracted support, increased communications support, increased support for our acquisition and development of vehicles. And I'll have to remark this, folks who don't know, that the New Jersey Forest Fire Service makes its own forest fire fighting vehicles. The folks that you see here and those in our Research and Development Center further south, they'll acquire a chassis for a vehicle and then construct upon it the additional equipment that we need to navigate our terrain, right? New Jersey isn't California. We're not Wyoming. Our terrain is unique, and the resources that we need to fight fires is unique as well. And then beyond that, the folks you see here and well beyond lend themselves, their time, and their talents all around this country to help others fight wildfire. So let's give them a round of applause again, please.
May I add to that? I wanted to say, may I interrupt you for 1 second? I apologize. Two comments. One is people from around the country come to New Jersey to study what you all do as a role model for the rest of the nation. That is incredibly important to say that, and I wanted to up front. Secondly, I'll tell you something, and Sean and Bill and others know this. We were battling some serious fires on the New York State border, and it was, fair to say, incredibly challenging because they don't have what we have. You think that's crazy. New York's got almost 20 million people. They don't have a state forest fire service, and that made that really hard, and I would argue it took longer to get that under control because of that than it otherwise should have. Sorry, Sean.
I agree on all accounts. But Governor, you're right that climate change in New Jersey is forcing us to grapple with this world of opposite extremes. On the one hand, incredibly hot, dry conditions that increase wildfire risk and threaten crop yield, as Mayor Piccoli well knows. We've talked about this many times. But then that's interspersed with these sudden, intense rainfalls that cause extreme flooding events. And so this is the world of worsening extremes that we're dealing with, and there's no better example of that experience in play than this past fall, right? In 2024, we saw over 1,400 wildfires burning more than 12,000 acres, but 884 of those fires were from September 1st to the end of the year. An incredible amount in a short period of time because of the worst meteorological drought that New Jersey has seen on record. And we remain in a drought right now despite these wet conditions because we've been in such a deficit. And so those conditions continue to plague us. And of course, here in the Pines, those circumstances are often worse because the sandy soils that characterize this region don't retain the moisture that we see up north in the forests in that area. And so we are launching today NJ Wildfire Smart, and that initiative collects a variety of resources that we have routinely made available to the public, but are asking for the help of every mayor and every legislator to help make those resources better known throughout the state of New Jersey so that folks are taking advantage of the safety information that we provide, that we can work, that folks are accessing the mitigation, the M in SMART, alongside our forest fire service here, that we're increasing awareness as well as response capabilities, and then also leaning into training as well. And you can find all of that information right on our website this morning at njwildfire.org.
So again, that's SMART as in safety, mitigation, bless you, awareness, response, training. And that part of our operation doesn't require any more pennies, but it does require more awareness and more coordination and more crispness for folks to understand exactly what's available, how you all operate, best practices, etc.
No, and importantly, continued federal funding. Our forest fire service, like our forestry service and many of the parts of the Department of Environmental Protection, rely on continual federal funding of these important initiatives. And so much of the funding that we receive and distribute to our communities is sourced federally, and so support in and advocacy for that continued flow of funds, including under the bipartisan infrastructure law, is incredibly important.
Well said. And federal funding right now is a little bit of a rocky terrain, as you've probably noticed. We're trying to figure out, as I mentioned, putting a budget together in the context of a lot of uncertainty is not the easiest thing we've ever done. So I think we need to have and the good news is this is a bipartisan group, and I think we're stronger when we stand together and united. And there's just essential services that the feds fund that we can't as a state, or any state for that matter, do without. Bill, I'm going to start over with you in a minute to give you a warning. Let's just say let's maybe ask everyone to address two. We'll do the mayors first, and then I'll come back and get our professionals to weigh in. Any observations you want to make just generally, and then secondly, that magic wand question. In an ideal world, what do you not have that you'd like to have, or what are we doing? What should we be doing differently, et cetera, to make ourselves a lot more nimble and able to get out ahead of all this. Bill, do you mind kicking off? Grab a mic if you don't mind.
We did this important kickoff. And
can you turn that on there, Bill?
Yeah, okay.
Just hit the button there.
Thank you for inviting me, Governor, for this important conversation about forest fires. Important, as we all know, like you indicated earlier on, particularly California and then up there in North Jersey, outside of our boundary. But most importantly, I'm Mayor Bill Pikliski. I live in Cape May County. I'm in the middle of the Pinelands there, part of the Belle Plaine State Park. We have a great relationship, and I want to thank the Forest Fire Service. Most of the times when we have these little forest fires, before our fire department is even aware it's going on, they're there, they've responded, and they've got it out. So let me tell you, I just want to thank you for that, and that really, they are on the ball. So they do a great job. The other thing I want to talk to you about is that obviously we have a little airport there. We provide, service. We provide filling up your aviation at times when there's forest fires down there, and we got good communications, collaboration. And I think it's really important that the communications that the Forestry Service is doing with our volunteer fire departments is very, very important. And I think that communication, if we can, build upon that, that even will work out a lot better. And what I hope to see, and I think will position us better, is control burns. Now, I think that's really important that we look at doing some controlled burning more, because I think that's going to prevent us. And we've got some real big, we got hundreds of acres, particularly where we're located. So, and signage might be something that we should be looking at, and I don't know whether our local schools or high schools or whatever, if we can get the Forest Service or some organization to go in and just to remind our youngsters and even our adults about the importance of, this forest fire. And it begins in our backyards. And in particularly in Pinelands, as the good commissioner knows, which I serve on the Pineland, they have the commission has really got to be looking at clearing out some of these areas from your homes and so forth, because I love tree huggers and I love all these environmentalists, but there's a point that, hey, we got to protect our areas, our living areas, our business areas and so forth. So, and I don't know, I think years ago there was some kind of programs available to residents, particularly that are in the rural areas, that have their communities in rural areas. They're given some incentives to clean up and take care of it. So I could add more, but it's all good stuff. We got great community.
I love all that, and one of the professionals, when we get through the mayor, should talk about what the control burn program is, also what we're doing with schools. But one of the things, Bill, in this SMART sort of acronym word salad, there's a lot of specific steps, and one of them is protocol for distance between structures and certain elements that might be problematic. So thank you very much. Michelle, you live the north, the New York State border
I did.
reality. You and I were on a fair amount back in those dark few days. Mm-hmm. Any observations and any magic wands other than getting New York State to get their own damn fire service organized?
Well, first, thank you for having me today, Governor and Commissioner. I'm honored to be here to talk about this very important issue. A lot of times we feel a little bit forgotten in the north end of the state, and we are incredibly important to the state. We are the stewards to the New Jersey drinking water, which is incredibly important, in addition to keeping the forest protected for that drinking water. And one of the things that I think would be extremely meaningful and something that you should hear about is back when we had Superstorm Sandy, there were a lot of trees that were, taken down during that storm. And unfortunately, the township is 80 square miles, West Milford, and 32% of the township is Newark watershed property. Unfortunately, after Superstorm Sandy, none of that property was cleaned up, so there is a lot of fuel, as it's referred to. I've learned a lot of lingo after working the last two wildfires, but there's a lot of dead wood in there, and from what I understand, that is a precursor to actually having a greater risk for forest fires. So I would encourage, Sean, for your office to work with Newark on cleaning up that property to prevent those fires, and when they do happen, they may not be as great as we have seen them happen. And the Canals Mountain fire was it was really a great example to utilize because that is Newark watershed property, and it went over that mountain, rather quickly, and it was difficult, I know. And the terrain, speaking of the terrain, and also remembering too that from a resource standpoint, in the north part of the state, sometimes a lot of what is provided for forest fighting services in the south isn't quite what I believe that they need when the fires come north. So I think that should be looked at as far as the resources that the gentlemen have.
And that's
when they're
largely terrain?
correct.
Okay.
Very mountainous, very rocky. And leading into that is the state's overall maintenance of the fire roads. There has not been a lot of focus on maintaining the fire roads so that when we do have a fire, hopefully we don't ever have one again, but if there is, it allows access to the state firefighters and their teams to be able to adequately access points in order to reduce the acreage that burns. Radio issues. In the mountainous terrain up there, I know that we had some communication problems. That's the feedback I had received, when on site and working with the various agencies on site. And I think communications for the safety and welfare of the people that are up there working those fires is paramount. And we should look at what we can do to increase communications when there is an incident in the north end of the state. The other concern I just wanted to bring forth was the staffing of the Bearfort and Ramapo fire towers. My understanding is they are not staffed currently today. And I think it's something that I know that you said you're going to allocate the same amount of funding and, not cut funding, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And I'm generally not one to champion for adding more dollars. But I would strongly encourage that you take a look at where there are deficiencies in the state and open up the staffing for them to be properly staffed and not stress-staffed, meaning staffed, not just temporarily staffed at times. But I think that would also be very, very helpful. And Sean, I think that, while we're talking about wildfires today, the township has 4 of the state's major reservoirs, right? And we've protected that land under the Highlands Act. And we are proud stewards in the township of West Milford of the Highlands Act. We completely understand the reason for what the state did in order to ensure that there's drinking water for the rest of the entire state, but also keeping those lands, cleaned up, protected, not having natural disasters and wildfires. And when natural disasters happen, that we address them to the full extent of what we can possibly do. And then to Mayor Williams, the prescribed fires. Because of the ash trees and the large amount of ash trees that we've had, we have a tremendous amount of dead wood in the forest. So I think it's a forestry plan in addition to a plan on, providing the resources to staffing the fire towers in the north part of the state, in addition to making sure that our people who respond to the fires have adequate communications and resources when they do have to respond.
That's a list.
I voted for you.
Bless you. We'll take it. I think I want to get Bill to weigh in here, but I think we're going to do all the mayors first and then come back and do the professionals. And I also want to hear what you guys want to weigh in here with as well. But thank you both for that. Mayor, good morning. How are you? Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Governor. First, welcome to Woodland Township.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're the boss.
We're the capital of the Pine Barrens, So, welcome. Yeah, along with what the mayor said from West Milford, staffing is a big issue. I actually work part-time for the Forest Fire Service. I've been working since I've been 18 years old actively for the last 25 years. I have a brush truck, so I've seen many of fires. I was actually up on the fire by the New York border. So I've seen, equipment. I know money's an issue, but a lot of the equipment is very old in the forest fire, and I give these guys all the credit in the world to work with what they have. And the mechanics, they put together these vehicles and equipment. I don't know how they do it, but they throw stuff together. They're amazing. But I think that's a very important thing. My truck's 25 years old. I know we have dozers and stuff that are from the 70s. So I think equipment's very, very important. And again, along with the mayor said in West, the roads, I think, maintaining the roads out here in the forest is extremely important. When I was a kid, you could ride around here to these roads. Now a lot of these roads are overgrown. There's water holes you can't get through, mud holes, and they're a mess. And I think the project that's been going on with doing the fire breaks is very important out here. I mean, if there's any way, we could slow a fire down or stop it and to try to contain it, make it smaller instead of becoming a large, out-of-control fire. It's very important. Prescribed burning, again, very important. But I think it's very important that the towers are staffed at all times. It's very important that, when one tower picks up a fire, it's very important that another tower get crossed so we know exactly where we're going and we're not out there looking for it. It makes the fire get larger. So and equipment, again, I think equipment's very important. And like I said, I give all the credit in the world to these mechanics. They slap trucks together. I mean, it's hard to get parts for a 2000 truck sometimes, and they're amazing. But what they work with. So again, thank you so much. I think this meeting is very important here today.
I appreciate your hosting us, and you wear two hats here. I was going to mention that when I acknowledge you both as mayor as well as somebody who's in this business, if you will, of fighting fires.
As a matter of fact, I was talking to you in the fire in 2019. We had 11,000 acre fire that burned right here to 72.
You and I were on.
21. Thank you, Jim.
We have 21 towers? 21 in the state? Okay, thanks, Mayor. Mayor, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you, Governor, for inviting me.
How are things in Bass River?
They're hanging in there. But I'd like to add, the rest of the mayors actually brought a lot of things out that I was going to bring out, so I won't beat that up at this point. I know that Bass River Township has many acres of pine lands, and we're a unique situation because not only do we have pine lands and a lot of trees, we also have water. So we have a situation of both. More burning, I would say, is very good, that they should do more burning. Forest Fire Service has always been there. We get a fire, they're always there. Them guys give 100% to Bass River. And I'd like to add that I'm a newly mayor, and the Forest Fire Service has 100% support of Bass River. And I just want to thank all you guys. You guys do a great job, and whatever you need, anything out of Bass River, we're there for you.
Love that. Both sides of that trade, that they're there for you and you're there for them.
Exactly right.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're
Appreciate it. Last but not least, Joe, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you again. Pretty much what the other mayors have said. I would add the towers. I understood we were losing a tower in Lakewood, and I was told that they're going to put one up in Jackson. I hope that's up before the season starts. That could be. The towers are extremely important in the Pine Barrens because you can't patrol all these roads, and everybody knows that the road you're on isn't going to be the road the fire starts on. It's just Murphy's Law. Well,
I know that one.
Not Governor Murphy, but so that's the towers are a big thing for us. In Section B, we've always worked well with them. When I was a teenager, I rode on trucks. Well, not a teenager, 18, but that's another story. But I've always been involved in the volunteer fire service, and it's we've always worked well with B section, and certainly if they have roads that need to be graded in Manchester, we'll work with our public works and get them to clean them up a little bit. I don't know. I think the county and Ocean County and B section has always been well taken care of by the Forest Fire Service. The fire we had, the thinning, I think, is huge. We did that Harry Ray Boulevard project where in 539 where you actually had a piece of equipment come in because it was too thick to burn. Wouldn't be safe. So, to do thinning with machinery and get that squared away, to get it on a schedule, I think that's huge. Even if they're swatches, maybe you don't want to do the whole section at one time, but if you did it like zebra stripes, you do a section and then jump a section and do another section, because that is huge out in the Roosevelt City section of Manchester. That has to be maintained. Certainly the federal government with the Dix bombing range, they need to control their area as well. So that's some issues in my time with that. Yes.
Question.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's really all I have.
Thank all of you for weighing in like that. Maybe, Bill, can I go to you, just get your reaction on any of the above, equipment, tower
Well-
closers, staffing, roads, et cetera.
Well,
And thank you for everything you do.
it's our pleasure. Everybody here, I think I can speak on their behalf. They enjoy it, and there's nothing they'd rather do. We do our best to fill our fire towers. There are some vacancies. That's what we pride ourselves on, is our early detection and rapid response. So the idea behind our fire towers is that they see where most people don't. You know, we get our fair share of reported 911s through cell phones and things like that, but obviously our fire towers are the secret to our success. You know, those folks are up there, they're keeping an eye on things, they see something, you're talking within a minute or two, we have resources en route. So we do prescribe burn every option we get, you know, every chance that we get, but, you know, New Jersey's rough. You know, you go from the burning season right into fire season. Some of the things that we want to burn aren't necessarily state property. Folks may not necessarily support the idea of burning, so we meet our challenges there. As far as our communications, you know, we're working on that. Our folks were fortunate enough to receive some money. We're looking to transition up to the system that the state police use, as well as most people in the state. They've switched up to a 700 system. Getting out to the high schools and things like that, I agree. You know, we got to do something. You might not know it looking at this group here. They're all relatively young men. But we do have a lot of older folks that, you know, these folks need to be replaced going forward. So getting out to our younger folks, I think, is going to be a good idea.
Bill, what's your total staffing right now?
I think we're in the low 60s.
I mean, given the scale of the challenges you have, that's
Oh.
it's not like you're overstaffed, right?
No, it was like somewhere in the 90s when I started. We
Yeah.
had like 90-some.
That's something
so.
we should really look at hard. There's only as good as 60 guys and gals might be. There's only so
Right.
much 60 guys and gals can do.
You know,
right?
and again, you got to keep in mind, our guys just aren't fighting fires. There's a lot goes on in the Forest Fire Service. We respond to all kinds of different things, from you know, people burning illegally, people get lost in the woods. We have to go out and do searches. We work well with other agencies in the DEP. So there's a lot going on for our agency as well as wildfires. So you're right. Yeah, sometimes we find ourselves being a little taxed, especially this year.
And both, I'll go to another bill. The school thing, to me, has two sides to the coin. One is to recruit, and the other is to teach young people good habits.
Absolutely,
That they
yeah.
can help force multipliers, as they say
Right.
in the military.
You know, we go out and we teach the pre-K and, you know, 1, 2, 3 grades about Smokey Bear and things like that, but then it stops. So, you know, maybe it's time to, you know, hey guys, look, when you guys are out there partying in the woods at nighttime, having these campfires and things that, you know, one, you shouldn't be doing it, but if you are and you're not getting caught, let's make sure these fires get put out and stuff like that when you leave. You know, there is some good information that could be spread amongst the folks.
I'm going to ask Tom to weigh in, and then I'll go to Greg, and then I'd love to hear these guys come in with any observations. And Sean, maybe you cap it off. Anything on the coordination with the Newark watershed question that Michelle raised? Is that something that somebody could comment on? Greg, do you want to hit it?
Yeah, I can take that one. So under my leadership, I have the Forest Fire Service, the Forest Service, and the Office of Natural Lands Management. And our Forest Service folks that do the planning across the landscape throughout the state have been working with Newark to develop a forest stewardship plan for the Newark watershed property. And part of that plan will address some of the things that Michelle brought up with the ash decline from mortality that's happened throughout the state, almost entirely a loss of ash in the forest canopy from emerald ash borer. That causes fuel loading, as you mentioned. It causes the ability for fire to spot. We saw that on a fire up in North Jersey where dead ash trees were sending burning embers further ahead of and starting new fires, new spot fires. So we're looking to address those type of things, as well as the access issues. When you have downed trees, you're going to be limited in your ability to respond to those fires and subscribe to that early detection and fast response. So we're looking to address some of those issues that are occurring there in Newark watershed.
Thank you for that, Greg. Is the ash mortality unique to us, or is this a national
This is
reality?
widespread throughout the Northeast, wherever ash is occurring. This is predominantly white ash, which is more of an upland species, but also green ash, which is a lowland species, but the emerald ash borer is not discriminating. It's killing all of the ash.
Got it. Thank you for that. Tom, can you weigh in with anything you want to observe here as the fire warden for the forest section, or section forest, rather?
Yeah, so for the mayors and all, the outreach to their folks that live in these wildland settings, they need to know that they have to have good defensible space around their homes. And if they have, a small lot size, then they need at least 30 feet of defendable space. That needs to be cleared of, anything that can burn. If they have a larger lot.
To what extent, Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt you, do you think folks in the general public know that?
They don't know that. A lot of them don't know that. A lot of folks.
That's kind of why we're here today, by the way.
A lot of folks in the more affluent areas have very good landscaping, well-watered grass. They have lots of defendable space. Other areas throughout the Pinelands have very limited. So small lots, they can give us 30 feet. Larger lots, 100 feet or more. And you need to focus in on that area within 0 to 5 feet of the house. You can't have trees touching the house. You can't have vegetation touching the side of the house. You can't have mulch beds up against the side of the house. You can't have your openings and your eaves. They have to be have wire mesh, about 1/8 inch, so embers can't enter the house. That's what's burning a lot of these houses down. They're going through areas of the house where they're open. You need to have the screens on their windows closed in the event of a fire. But that 0 to 5 feet needs to be devoid of everything. If you have green grass, that's wonderful. If you have a wooded setting, you just need to, keep the pine needles and stuff away from the house. Keep combustibles away from the house. And just have a plan.
So can I just jump in for a moment?
Yes.
Please.
So in the north part of the state, people pride themselves for raking the leaves into the woods, right? So there isn't a place for us to bring them, right? Because we don't have perfect square 100 by 100 lots, right? The lots are very wooded, a lot of leaves fall, and they do rake the leaves to the outside, right? But because it's so wooded, when there's a fire, it actually moves towards the homes, right? So I think education in the Pinelands, which I completely agree with you, may be slightly different for the north area of the state. So we should maybe think about that.
Getting that debris away from the home is most important. It doesn't matter if it's out in the woods. If it's 30 feet away from the structure, it's giving you some defendable space. If you have those leaves up against the house, then the firefighters, the first responders have to take care of all that stuff, and you lose valuable time. So if that's already done, if your sheds and all have been raked around, I don't care if you push it out in the woods. We can deal with that. But getting it away from the building itself, most important.
I don't know that empirically this is the case, but anecdotally, because I get apprised of any significant fires, and invariably I reach out to the respective mayors. Again, Michelle and I had to pick on her. We're back and forth a lot in those few days. But anecdotally, at least, Chief, it feels to me like this is 80-20 south to north in terms of amount of fires in my time as governor. Does that feel right?
Yeah, and it's concerning to me that it's increased in the north.
20% north,
80% south.
South.
About 2/3 of the area are where we typically get our most fires
Yep.
and our bigger fires
Yep.
and the running fires. But because of how dry it's been this year, the north
Yep.
seen some substantial fires that may not be going away anytime soon.
In fairness, pre my intense back and forth with Michelle, I think it might have been 90-10
Yeah.
until last fall in terms of south versus north. Yeah.
Certainly with the big fires.
And the big ones, I'm probably not going to know real time on a small fire, but anything big I would, I would get a heads up. Tom, anything else? You good?
No, good.
Greg,
I'll just say, just to chime in real quickly, as part of Wildfire Smart, that first S on safety, all the things that are being mentioned here about the good efforts that any homeowner should take, right? That is, those resources are what we are asking all of the mayors, all of our county partners, all of our legislative partners to help push out as part of Wildfire Smart, because there is something that every single one of us can do to reduce risk, and we all have to recognize that we've got skin in the game in doing so.
Yeah, a lot of what Sean just said, and Tom was just talking about the 30-foot distance, et cetera. A lot of that's part of this mess. We're trying to get this essentially as a campaign to get folks out there in the man on the street, if you will, to have a better sense.
I pretty much all during burning season, during fire season, during every meeting, I remind at every meeting about, fire safety. And anytime we burn near our town, I always have our clerk put something out in Nixle or on the website about smoke being in the air, because if not, a lot of the times the residents get all worried about everything. But, I know our town's very active in advising all the residents about what's going on. And I think that's a very good point that that should be put out more.
Thank you, Greg. I only asked you about Newark watershed, but more broadly, any observations? Greg's one of the senior guys, as he mentioned, in DEP and oversees a lot of what we're talking about today. Anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Governor. Just to touch on some of the points that the mayors had brought up relative to controlled burning, as it was described here, we like to refer to it as prescribed burning because we do it as part of a prescription very intentionally. A lot of planning and pre-planning goes into that. We look at historical fires. We look at the fuel accumulations, how we can reduce those fuels. We've really ramped up our prescribed burning program just in the last 5 years. We've taken staff and dedicated a team to look at the prescribed burning that's going on throughout the state, looking for areas where we can increase opportunities for prescribed burning. We've set up a program to offer agency support to private landowners that want to do prescribed burning, because we realize that, fire is going to go from state property to county property and municipal property. Fire doesn't care who owns the property, right? And that includes private property. So we're working more now than ever before with private property owners, private forest landowners, to offer prescribed burning opportunities to them. We set up a dedicated account. We charge a very nominal fee to private landowners. It's very fair and economical for them to use our support. And then the little revenue we get back from that, we set up a dedicated account. We plug that back into the program. Again, for the first time in a long time, we've sent staff to the Prescribed Fire Training Center, which is the national premier location to receive top-level Type 2 burn boss training.
Where is that?
And that's in Florida. Okay. And now we have several of our staff that are nationally certified as Type 2 burn bosses, where in 5 years ago we had one person. So we're really ramping up our commitment and dedication to prescribed burning throughout the state because we realize that's our best tool. It's economical, yep. It's safe, and we can treat fuels, and we want to reduce those fuels.
Greg, ballpark, how many acres do you prescribe burn a year on average?
So we've been targeting 25,000 acres a year. We accomplish somewhere, depending on the weather and the season, about 20,000 acres a year.
Still,
so we're getting close. We're getting close to that target. We'd like to increase that number, though, significantly.
Get it up higher. And you said, Sean, my number was light. You said 12,000 acres last fall, unprescribed.
In the year.
In the year.
12,000 for wildfire destruction, as opposed to the prescribed burning.
Yeah, I was going to say the unprescribed burning.
I just wanted to add,
please,
Governor, also just to answer the one question to Mr. Hankins, who I've worked with when a lot of our programs were in really early stages of development, that we are constructing a new fire tower to replace the Lakewood fire tower. The new fire tower is going to be located in Jackson, so it'll have the same coverage area throughout Ocean County and Burlington County there. And we do have to use part-time staff to staff towers where we have vacancies with our full-time staff. Full-time staff in the tower position offers us a lot of benefit, though, in terms of a full-time person, because they're the staff that's supporting the building of the trucks that Commissioner LaTourette mentioned.
And the Lakewood Tower is closing just because it's old?
Because there's some instructions, and it was on a leased property. This property we didn't own.
back to Bill, who kicked us off here. This line of business, police, teachers, nurses, the demand supply imbalance, and it's not just New Jersey, this is an American phenomenon right now, is not where it needs to be. So we're doing, if Pat Callahan were here for the state police, or our top fire guys, any of the union heads, that tell you we get too many vacancies right now across all those professions, and there is among the most critical in any community. Carmen, as a former mayor and now senator, anything you want to add? And then Latham, would love to get your perspective from your Senate seat.
Whatever for the Forest Fire Service through the budget process to make sure that we have that, and whatever we can do on a local level to help advertise to get those vacancies filled, I think is very important. We have a lot of volunteer firemen within the 19 towns that I have in the 9th Legislative District. I'm sure a lot of them would love to have a professional career in the Forest Fire Service, so that would be great to fill those vacancies. Because I think it's very important, because if you have those vacancies filled, that's just peace of mind for everybody working. But once again, Governor, thank you so much.
So well said. And it probably makes sense for all of us to get tighter in terms of coordinating. Legislators, mayors, obviously, the service, our administration. I think the closer we can get on something like this, the better result I'm sure we'll have. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Latham, how are you doing? And welcome, and thanks for being here.
How are you?
I'm good, man. Anything you want to add?
No, Governor, thank you. Commissioner, thanks for having us today. I've lived in the Pine Barrens all my life.
Yep.
And
What town are you in again?
I grew up in Tabernacle. I live in Southampton.
Yep.
So I've frequented many fire towers, even gone up in there, and they've showed us how everything works as a kid.
Yep.
I think everybody here is pretty much on the same page as far as manning. Having the right resources, not 25-year-old trucks, because God forbid if they break down in the woods in the middle of a fire, we all have problems, right? So I think that's mainly what I just wanted to stress was manning the fire towers, because that's early detection, right? The sooner you get onto that, the sooner we can get that thing out. Having the right resources and staffing, and we have helicopters here. We see some of the stuff we have in the back, and make sure we have the pilots for the helicopters. Make sure we have enough staff. 60 people doesn't sound like a whole lot for as much woods as we have. So,
It's a shockingly small number.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what these guys and girls can do.
Incredible.
Yes.
What they do with that number of heads is extraordinary. Thank you. We may want to talk offline and maybe sharpen our pencils a little bit in terms of resources here. That we're in a tough bind, but there's certain things here that are just beyond whether or not it's a tough year or not. Thank you, guys, and thank you for being here. It means a lot. Before we break, I just want to ask one specific question to the professionals, and then if anyone else has anything they want to get off their chest that they think we missed, and then let's keep the lines open. The question for the professionals, maybe Chief, start with you. I have to believe this is the case, but when you look at the tragedy in Los Angeles, do you all study something like that, and are there any big takeaways that you have from how that was approached?
Well, no, let's face it, when you're difficult no matter where you are. But no, that's what we look at here every day in New Jersey. We have some of these retirement places and things like that there. These communities are built right in the forested area. So that's why it's important that we get out there and we do these thinning projects, the prescribed fire, because we realize that this is, a reality here in New Jersey. Most folks will notice there was a lot of things that burned down didn't even have trees in the yard. It's because, like Tom was saying there, you get these embers that land in people's mulch beds or they land in their leaves, and before you know it, you're having fire after fire. One house turns into two turns into 10 turns into 100. With the constructions and things like that, the way things are built around here. No, we're very aware of it, and we do something every day if we can to try to prevent that from happening.
Anything you want to add, any lessons or takeaways from Los Angeles that are beyond what Bill said?
Yeah, a lot of Los Angeles, a lot of that fire was in a almost totally built environment, which is, building to building fire spread. So buildings too close together, a lot of that. We have a lot of that here in South Jersey in the Pinelands. And a lot of these fires are up on top of, these developments very quickly. A lot of times we have to protect people in place, and there's not even time to evacuate in a lot of these situations. So, that personal interaction with a lot of these communities early on is key to making sure that the day is a successful day.
Amen. Greg, any takeaways for you?
Excuse me. Yeah, definitely. You see a lot of similarities between the conditions in California and what we face here in New Jersey. One of the things we didn't talk about is the fact that New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the nation. We have 1 million acres here alone of pretty much solid forest in the Pinelands. Over 3 million acres the 60 people cover to protect from wildfires. We didn't talk about the concept of the wildland-urban interface. And the wildland-urban interface is that area where the structures that we want to protect, the things that we value, intermix with that vegetation. And that is our biggest concern for suppressing wildfires, because it's a dangerous area to fight fires. We can't be going into the wildland-urban interface with the intention of putting out a wildfire and then be putting out leaves around somebody's shed, as Tom said, or, which I've seen numerous times, helping to evacuate people from their homes. Then we lose sight of our focus. We have to work to create these fuel breaks, these fire breaks, that give us the comfort, to go into these areas and suppress the fires accordingly. 46% is the number of residents in this state live in what's classified as a wildland-urban interface. So half the residents are at risk from wildfire in New Jersey. And then we can come back to this depending on time, but just to go back to Bass River, Manchester, to all the mayors and to the public, we provide $300,000 a year to support wildland fire efforts of local fire companies. We do that through our rural fire assistance grants. We have 32 communities that are part of a Firewise Communities program, and we provide grants to those communities to do things that they can help protect themselves. And then we offer municipalities the ability to develop community wildfire protection plans, which also has a funding amount for that.
46%, man. Holy cow. Any last words from our mayors? Bill, Michelle, guys?
Just on the education aspect, the New Jersey, I'm on the board for the New Jersey State Fire Museum, and I believe Brian Corvina said the State Forest Fire is going to have an exhibit with the Fire Museum in April. So that's, I think that's going to work well with publication. As far as the Firewise program, I know we put that out in our book in Manchester when we put out our recycling programs. And we had talked about maybe having dumpsters available for larger vegetation, and that's probably something we should follow up on so that we can get this defendable space around our communities.
Well done. Rick or Billy, any?
Just, like I said, I know, like the Senator said, the budget's tight, but I really think maybe you ought to try to find a little bit more funding somewhere to upgrade some of this equipment, because it's old. We could have a real bad year, looks like, upcoming, and we don't know when it's going to get better, and we definitely need the equipment, that's for sure, to do the job.
You kind of shocked me with your 25-year-old
and it's actually a pretty good truck, but
that's
gets slapped together.
This is the one from the 70s.
But we're told to take good care of stuff.
Good Lord. Michelle, any you want to?
Just thank you for having me as a part of the discussion. I appreciate being invited.
How long was the drive?
2.5 hours.
God bless
But you know what? It was a nice drive.
It was worth it.
It was. One last thing, just, I don't know how it works from state to state, but I would encourage you, Governor, to maybe see if there's any opportunity to create, especially for municipalities that border state lines that are heavily forested, having some sort of standing agreement possibly already in place so that communications can flow better. That was one of the struggles that we faced, and we overcame it, but having that ahead of time may be beneficial in the future.
New York is the real target because we largely have rivers that separate us, but New York is the real target. And the fact they don't have a state fire service, which is beyond belief for me, but it's a good.
Agreed, but having some sort of agreements would be helpful.
That's
Thank you.
a great suggestion.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Sean LaTourette, any last words of wisdom from you?
I just want to thank everyone, Governor, for you bringing all of us together, mayors for your insights. I take all this to heart, and we'll be following up with all of you, as well as with our members of the legislature. Thank you so very much.
Amen. And I want to add my thanks, Chief, to Tom, Greg, to these extraordinary mayors, extraordinary legislators, and the brave men and women who man this service. It's an incredible honor to be with you. I'm mad that it took me this long to get here, but better late than never. I hope it's not my last trip. Thank you for my way cool. This is like the nicest trinket I've gotten in several years. Another reason I won't forget today. And you do, that phrase, you punch above your weight. I don't know if there's any organization in the state that punches more above its weight than this one, right? And so it's up to us to try to figure out how we can back and fill and make sure you've got the resources you need. And the mayors, I've got personal experience with basically everybody here. And this is the only peacetime interaction or rare peacetime interaction I've had with you, because it's usually texting or calling in the teeth of something that's an emergency. So it's good to just sort of be able to sit here and exchange ideas and share best practices. And I can't thank you enough for hosting us so graciously. Thank you all.